here's some news articles I thought were interesting. The original computer, the thing we've been using for 30 years is Intel processors, x86 and x64, and then came ARM processors, which are faster and use less power. And everything's moving to ARM, especially portable things like cell phones, but now laptops like the one I'm using now. But the next one after that would be RISC-V. And I had no idea RISC-V had gotten this far. I'd heard about it. The difference is Intel and ARM are proprietary, and you have to pay a license fee to use them. So you're paying money on every device you buy that uses them. But RISC-V is an open standard. And that means not only is it free to use, but you can also customize it. So not every device has to use the same processor chip, and that apparently is considered a huge advantage. So you can make your device more efficient by not bothering to include the instructions you don't need. And I was amazed to read about RISC-V here. I thought RISC-V was just an experimental project not ready for prime time, but they say there's something like 650 million RISC-Vs have already been shipped, being used in mobile, automotive, extended reality, and Internet of Things products. So that's pretty impressive. So if you're taking the exploit development class, we're doing ARM exploits now, because there's an emulator to run ARM on Intel and to run Intel on ARM. And I imagine I can emulate RISC-V. So when I get back to it, that'll probably be the next thing I want to add to that course is RISC-V, assembly language and exploits. Anyway, so it's moving along faster than I thought. So we'll probably see more of it, especially after an article I saw last week that said that ARM, the company, is in fact in bad financial state. And they're making huge changes to the licensing model, which may irritate people and motivate more people to move to RISC-V. So there's a famous study that claims that the vaccine killed 280,000 people, and it was actually published in a serious scientific journal, and now they have finally pulled it. A few of these things got in, and it's horrible. It's just complete nonsense. The person who did it relied on anecdotal data without backing it up and ridiculous estimates and such. In no way is that true at all. I mean, in no way did the vaccine cause that many deaths. I think reputable studies have said it might have caused like 5 or 10 deaths. There's a tiny chance for like a heart condition after the vaccine, like 1 in a million. And so you save many more lives from COVID than you do due to the consequences of the vaccine. So this is interesting. This is a picture that came out a couple of years ago. This is the first picture of a black hole taken with the new James Webb telescope. And what they did was take a machine learning model and train it on theoretical models of a black hole and use it to refine this picture. So that's an interesting thing to do, because what it means is this picture is not exactly an experimental result. It's interpreting this in light of the theory of what it should look like. So, that's an interesting, this is a purely experimental result, a real measurement. This is a sharpening, including theoretical models, so it's interesting to see. Anyway, interesting to see how they do it, and I thought that was very helpful. It inspired me to add another machine learning project, which I'll talk about later. I'm going to do that next week, and I'm going to have a whole lot more. So anyway, it's this kind of machine learning you can do, and you will do it in the hands-on project next week to sharpen images. So they caught the guy that leaked the classified documents. This has been everywhere for the last week. It's just a 21-year-old guy who was a low-ranking military person, and he had access to these very sensitive documents. It reminds me very much of Bradley Manning, who was a private and yet had access to tons of sensitive documents and then just leaked them to WikiLeaks. This guy didn't mean to expose them. He was just trying to impress his teenage friends in an online chat room by showing them top secret stuff, but it leaked out, and now sensitive military secrets are out there, and some people are getting very upset. Some other people say it's not too important. But anyway, this guy, Jack Teixeira, is obviously screwed now. He's got arrested, and on top of that, his online posts showed him posing with guns and screaming anti-Semitic, racist stuff and threatening the government. So they were afraid that there would be violence when they arrested him, but they managed to catch him away from his guns and just arrest him peacefully. So he's arrested now, and I don't imagine he's going to get out of prison anytime soon. He's clearly pretty much had it now. He's seriously broken the law. So this is a very interesting article. This woman writes children's stories, and she wrote a very popular children's story called Love in the Library. And what it is, it's about Japanese Americans in the internment camps who find a mate and fall in love there. And she put an author's note on the back where she explained how this was appalling racism, how all the Japanese Americans were just grabbed from their home and shipped off to an internment camp. They weren't even given time to collect their possessions. They had to abandon their possessions and their pets and everything. And they're shipped off there, held without any knowing how long it would be, and sort of held in awful, destitute concentration camp conditions. And she says it's outrageous racism, and she says it's not as if this racism is gone. I've continued to face racism all through my life. And as you probably know, the current position of the right, like the Florida government and the Texas government, is that you cannot say that there's any racism in America. They're changing the history books of children, so black activists like Rosa Parks that protested against black discrimination, they're changing it so they don't mention her race. This is the popular right-wing viewpoint. It's something I saw on National Review from the Rich Lowry, big shot there, saying there is no racism in America. It's all nonsense, which is the current right-wing position. And so they offered to publish her book at a really important publisher that would reach many more children, but only if she removes all mention of racism in the story. And she said, I can't do that. I'm choosing to be blacklisted by the red states, but this is more of the culture wars, and it's pretty appalling. But of course, if you wanted to be a national book publisher and sell it to school libraries, this is what you'll have to do now. You'll have to remove everything that the red states don't like. And they are so extreme that 2 red states, I think, have now announced that since they have been declared, they tried to ban all books about gay people from the libraries in the state. And when the Supreme Court said they couldn't do that because of the First Amendment, they decided to just close all the libraries in the state so that no children could find those books. So the culture wars are getting kind of out of hand. Not news to anybody. Anyway, the War Thunder community leaks classified documents to ensure accuracy of in-grain tanks and planes. Yes, that's what the early description of that leak was that he did it to impress people with his knowledge, but in fact he did it just to appear important to a bunch of teenagers that saw him as the leader of their little group, the guy that leaked all those secrets. So it was just sort of a childish stunt to impress people. And there's clearly going to be he's going to have legal problems, and there's going to have to be a big investigation in the military of why do people like that have access to such important stuff. Anyway, so NPR stopped using Twitter a few days ago because Elon Musk marked them as state propaganda, which they are not, but it seems that way to people on the right. And now PBS has also suspended Twitter posting. So Musk is driving away the reputable news agencies. He also harmed the New York Times recently. He banned the New York Times from posting for a while because he doesn't like the New York Times. So I mean, he's basically just the alt-right, like these guys. He constantly talks to right-wing thought leaders like Cat Turd. Cat Turd is one of the main right-wing thought leaders now. And so anyway, the Twitter is turning into 4chan, crazy right-wing stuff, and the reputable journalists are leaving. I'm glad to see it. It's sort of appalling how many journalists still go there. I thought it was funny. I'm going to be presenting at RSA, and they wanted my Twitter handle, and I'm just going to put in a Mastodon handle, and they can just lump it. I'm not using Twitter anymore, and I don't think anybody will be using it much longer. I don't even think it will exist much longer. Musk is getting tired of paying the bills, and he's doing more and more crazy stunts to make money that are not working, in addition to pushing an outrageous political position that I do not want to support. So ChatGPT has a bug bounty program. If you can figure out how to hack their AI product, you can get up to $20,000. So there are limitations and rules and stuff like any other bug bounty program, but I'm glad to see it. They certainly need to secure the thing. It's very important. And so Bob Lee was killed recently. He was a tech entrepreneur in San Francisco. He was stabbed early in the morning and killed. And this hit the right-wing media as San Francisco is a terrible place, crime-filled and everything. And none of that is true at all. In fact, they have a chart of crimes, I think, down here. Here's the chart of crimes from 1985 to now. And as you can see, homicides are in fact way down. It's less dangerous than it used to be in San Francisco. And in fact, this was not a random killing. It was a guy he knew. He was in a car at 2 or 3 in the morning riding with another person. And the other person, they had an argument, and they stepped out of the car, and that guy stabbed him and killed him. And they just arrested him. And he's another entrepreneur that runs some other tech company. So it was just a personal matter between these people. It was not that the streets of San Francisco are so dangerous that you walk down the street and get stabbed any more than you would anywhere else. So that's a good thing to know. I think there's more shoplifting in San Francisco and more car break-ins. I think that's really happening, but there isn't more murders than other towns. Anyway, yeah.
Converter stealing.
Yes, stealing catalytic converter. Yeah, that sort of thing. There are certain crimes like that really are high in San Francisco, but not murders. Yeah.
Can we back up a little bit about the bug bounty?
About the what?
The bug bounty?
Yeah. What about it?
So, yeah, like generally speaking, do people that participate in bug bounties, do they think they're adequately or fairly compensated?
No, and this is a very good question. A bug bounty is not a way to make a sensible amount of money. You have to be a real expert. You have to be the first one to find something really important. And at that level, you'll never make enough money to make up for it. You do it just sort of for the glory. Now, people in other countries, like Pakistan and stuff, do it. And because that's the people that really make money on these things, because they need less money. And if you want to make a living at it, what you do is you don't go for the new ones like this. What you do is you find an old one, and then you find you have one trick, and then you try it on all the bug bounty programs. So you go. So I mean, there are ways to make some money at it, but you will never make as much money as you would just getting a normal tech job. It's just an opportunity. If there aren't any tech jobs where you live in some rural country or some nation that doesn't have any tech jobs, then this is a way to get some money. And it might be that a relatively small amount of American money would be a lot in the country you're in. But for anybody in America that could get a real tech job, this is not a practical way to make money.
It's not a career path.
No. But for example, for students who are just coming up and trying to make a name for themselves, it's good to do things like that.
Yeah.
But I've only made a few $100 at bug bounties. I almost never make anything because you have to be the first one. And I always find it's already been found or it's out of scope.
Okay.
And I had something strange they hadn't thought of, and they said that doesn't count. And like 2 years later, they said, "Oh, that was right." So then they paid me. So it's very hard. That was for locking DNS records to stop social engineering DNS takeovers, which was not well known at the time. And I announced that. I told like 5 companies about that, and one of them came back years later and gave me a couple $100 because it was so esoteric they didn't know about it.
Well, that's impressive that they went to the trouble to find you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I'm on an official bounty program, so I'm right there. Anyway, so I see someone says, "Boss told the team to watch out in San Francisco at night because after RSA." Well, yeah, I think the only thing that's going to happen to you at night in San Francisco is some homeless guy will ask you for change, I think. Anyway.
No, these are people beating it up.
Pe-
The government board, director something got beat up.
Yeah, a couple people do get beat up. There's occasionally crazy homeless people that beat people up. It's true, but that's not very common.
Homeless people beating people up.
Yeah, there is some of that. Anyway, some people leaving blue states for red ones. Yep, for low rent. That's right. SF was dangerous. There's a reason the Dirty Harry movies are set there. Yeah, perhaps in the past. And someone's listening to an audiobook. SF was the most dangerous metro area in the 1970s. Yeah, long ago it was dangerous, but not that much anymore. All right. Anyway, I think that's enough news. Let me stop this.